Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Solo Spotlight here at Spare Bedroom Studios. Today, my guest, Bryce MacArthur, certified personal trainer, NAIT graduate, co-host of the Pursuing Horizons podcast, and a guy who's about to run the 10K Spartan Race on August 9th to raise money for men's mental health. We get into a lot with this conversation: how to train without wrecking your body, building mental resilience when life punches you first, stepping out of the commercial gym to launch his coaching business, B3 Coaching, and why guys need to talk about what's really going on in their head. If you're ever been told to tough it out, this one's for you. Bryce is literally willing to crawl through the mud, possibly in a women's Lulu outfit, just to prove the point and raise money. All the links to support his fundraiser and follow his journey are in the description below. Go give him some love, settle in, drop a comment on what horizon you're chasing right now, and let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Bryce MacArthur. All right, welcome to Solo Spotlight with Ryan MacDougall, episode 44, I believe. I'm here with Bryce MacArthur. Is it MacArthur or MacArthur?
MacArthur.
MacArthur.
Yeah.
I saw the A and I was like, I don't know. People always say, because I have MAC, and they go, is it MacDougall, MacDougall? And it's like, well, it's Mac, but, you know.
MacArthur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How you doing today?
Doing great, man.
Good.
I was looking forward to this. This is actually I've done 2 podcasts in person. So, yeah, it's new for me. Usually I'm just looking at a screen. So.
How do you find that? I always had... I have a very biased experience. I don't know if it's my internet. I don't know if it's... But I always found that, like, this is the most genuine way to, like... And that's not to knock, because, like, some people you just can't access, right? Like, some people, if they're not in the Edmonton area, it's very hard. Or, like, this took me a really long time to, like... You know, it used to just be like patio furniture, and like I'd have a TV screen that I didn't plug in, and then I would put a graphic over it, and just like really finicky shit. And then you start to find out what works and what doesn't. But how did you find your experience, like with remote? Like, you still find you get good conversations and stuff?
Yeah. So when we first started doing podcasts, we actually used to use Discord.
Mm-hmm.
So we would just base it off of the talking bubbles.
Right.
And we would base it off of when one person stopped talking. So now having the video to see someone's body language and actually what they're doing has really amplified the whole thing. But also, like you mentioned too, the plethora of guests we now have access to now, because like I had somebody on from Texas, for example, right? Or someone from like Turkey, and it's like normally you wouldn't have that reach if you're just solely doing in person, right? Mm-hmm. But I think both have utility.
It's one of those things, especially as a podcaster, you don't want to leave it out, because again, you're cutting yourself off to so many different people and like stories and, you know, that type of stuff where you just don't want to miss up on the opportunity because you're trying to like perfect it.
Yeah.
Like, you almost have to be like, I'm going to make the best out of what I got. And like, I'm going to make sure I do the work beforehand to make sure that like my shit's done correctly. Right. Because it's like, okay, say I had a bad experience. Well, is it a bad experience because I'm not willing to look elsewhere for different applications or different ways that I could perform a remote? Because I was doing it with Skype, and then I was like tailing it into OBS, and that wasn't really working properly, and the audio was off. Then I went to Zencaster, but it was one of those things of like, is this a me problem, or is it like the function of what we're doing, if that makes sense, right? But podcasting is great, and we talked off air about it, like just the ability of like harnessing these skills and having these like natural conversations and challenging your own like opinions and thoughts. And like, I think that's something that's kind of escaped people right now, of like being in thought silos and not being able to actually talk to people where you're like, oh, I might not agree with this person's take, or I might not know anything that this person's doing.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be humbled every once in a while. It really is. It's super refreshing.
Yeah, and I think in a society where everything is like AI, or a lot of it now is virtual, people are really craving that intimate component of things, and I think podcasting really provides that. Like whether you are doing it in person or even just watching or listening to a conversation, I think people are craving that genuine and authentic component to social media that they probably wouldn't normally be getting if it weren't for podcasting.
And there's like a term that people say now where they say podcasting is like a friendship simulator.
Yeah.
And it's really scary to think about it like that, but it's like maybe the way it's put is kind of like, oh, I don't know if I like that, but it is. It's like you're able to like, especially with people that are very like influential and stuff, they're able to like break it open. You're able to feel like a genuine connection to these people that you wouldn't necessarily have the opportunity to. So maybe the language around it is kind of muddy, but I think like the idea of what people get, like the satisfaction or like that dopamine hit, is like a good idea as long as the information's correct and you're not like listening to some of these like crazy podcasts where it's like some of the things are, because there's no like censorship, you can talk about whatever you want, right? So there's like you got to make sure you're going to the right points, like the sources of information, and things are like well documented or like you have like facts behind it, right? Yeah, of course. But I'm here to kind of like talk about your journey. Like by trade, you're a personal trainer. You've kind of had this journey into fitness at an early age. Then you kind of did it through like corporate before you decided going in to do your own entrepreneurial business. And then through that, you were able to like expand in different capacities. So let's go into it. Let's talk about a brief origin story. How young do you think you were before you got exposed to fitness?
Oh yeah, the origin story. Usually I'm on the receiving end.
I know, it's weird.
Yeah, no, I'm honored. Well, first of all, thank you for listening, for watching. It's a pleasure to be here. So I got into fitness when I was like 15. Probably grade 10 and grade 11. You know, the age where you really want to get jacked because you want girls to look at you more. Then you realize that it's mainly guys that look at you more. It's a joke. And you realize you're doing it for the wrong reasons, but still, I got some equipment inherited to us when I was like 15. We got some from my uncle. Then I was just doing like dungeon style home workouts, right? Bodybuilding.com, I had like this really old school book that I would write through, and it was like, I wonder if I still have it. It's probably worth money now. Just joking. And then eventually from there I got into fitness. I actually was doing electrical before, and I was actually offered my book to like pursue it, and I said no. And then that was kind of what led to me pursuing fitness as a career. So then from there I went to Nate, like we talked about already. We did Nate from 2017 to 2019, and then immediately got working at Good Life after. So I was at Good Life Clearview, so more like the north location, for about a year and a half, kind of until the COVID stuff happened, right? And then when that happened, I started my online business.
Right.
So over COVID, just because I had so much time, right? I learned how to do the website. I learned how to do media. I learned how to like start putting myself out there and get used to that too. All the invoicing, all the back end stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then I got back into the commercial space. So I actually went back to Movati.
Okay.
And I was there for like a year and a half. And then I went private like 2023. Yeah, like the very beginning of 2023.
How did you find that like your formal training like prepared you for like the actual like functions of the job? Do you find that like your training through Nate like fully prepared you, or was it a lot of trial by fire?
Always trial by fire.
Always trial by fire.
Yeah. I feel like you can never truly be ready to, first of all, leave the commercial space. But I think theory and application, there's always quite a large gap, right? In theory, something should work based off of X, Y, Z. But in application, I find it's always different, because X and Y does not always equal Z, or whatever it may be. So you have to try to find a certain unique way and approach, but I find a lot of it comes down to just people skills, which they don't really place a ton of emphasis on when it comes to the training end of things. But I mean, you have to be good with people. It doesn't matter how good of a coach you are. If you
Right.
can't talk to people, have conversations, be humane, it doesn't matter too much.
And what would you say, like, going into this, like, first day of personal training? I know on on your podcast you discuss about like the middle ground between an extrovert and an introvert, an ambivert. So did you find that you were already had that kind of like personal like skills, or was it kind of something that was like off-putting
Yeah.
at the start? How did you kind of like manage that? Because that's the first thing I would be like, is how do you manage all these different personalities, make sure the structure of every program is like personalized
Yeah.
to them without using your own personal bias or your own like what you think they should do, right?
Right. Yeah, so I guess for context, first for the audience, you have introvert, you have extrovert, right? And it's very spectrum driven, but ambivert, you kind of more lie in the middle. But an ambivert is usually someone who likes having their own alone time and they value that, but they can also get recharged from conversations and from experiences with the right people. So I didn't know that was really a thing until fairly recently. I kind of thought you were like this or that.
Yeah, you're either an A-type personality or you're not.
Yeah, and for me, like to answer your question, I was way more introverted. So even getting into podcasting and getting into like personal training was way out of my bubble because I normally wasn't super comfortable with like being on camera or recording myself, hearing myself talk, and even like having conversations with people that I wasn't able to establish rapport in like more of an intimate setting with first. So I would say for me, like I had to learn to become more extroverted.
Did that take like self-talk? How did that get through it? Was that conversations with yourself or was that conversations with other people?
Both.
Both.
But I think also there's a quote that I was saying yesterday, and I don't know if it's just my quote or if it's someone else. And I said the person that you are searching for is through the door that you will not open.
Yeah.
So what it kind of means is like what you're looking for, the person you want to become is through the door that you don't want to open because you're scared.
Yeah.
Right? So for me there was a lot of fear when I got into this stuff because I mean, we're not used to being behind camera. We're not used to being behind a microphone, and we don't want to have eyes on us, whereas that's what all of this stuff is now, right? But it was a lot of self-talk, but it was also a lot of just like, let's say, cold exposure. Like you just kind of have to like do it over and over and over again, so it becomes less scary, becomes more autonomous, right?
Yeah. And one thing that kind of I resonated with at the start of like, again, like being in front of cameras, talking to people, essentially just being that point of contact where there's a level of imposter syndrome where you're saying, should I really be the one doing this? Do I know what I'm talking about? Did I do this right? What if I did it wrong? What if I'm just full of shit this entire time and I'm leading all these people down the wrong road?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad thing because I think that's one of the things where people need to look in the mirror and say like, what's my intention?
Yeah.
What am I actually trying to do? Am I here for money? Am I here for the ego stroke? And what am I trying? Am I being a personal trainer because I'm trying to just be around a gym with a bunch of females and hopefully I can get my next date, right? So I think having that kind of like self-assessment of saying like, are you being an imposter? Maybe you are, right? Maybe it is. And but good for you for like having, I think the biggest step is having the courage to do it. I think that's the biggest thing. And I'm sure you can echo that when you're like talking to some of your clients who maybe are like, oh, I'm scared of this, I'm scared. It's like just getting in there the first time is the hardest step.
Yeah.
And you have to reward yourself and like give yourself the credit where credit's due.
No, thank you. And to kind of give the listeners or watchers one more thing too, like this is kind of the reframe I've had around imposter syndrome, right? To me, imposter would indicate that you're trying to impersonate somebody that's not you. So if you're being genuine and authentic and real, and if you're in alignment with who you're trying to become and who you want to be, there's no way you can be an imposter.
Yeah.
I only see it as like being an imposter if you're trying to put on a show, and if you're maybe doing something that you shouldn't be doing or that you're not really set to be doing. So if you have clarity on like what you want and who you are, you can't really be an imposter.
Yeah, I 100% agree. If you're doing the right thing, you know whether or not. Like I always explain to people that I work with the term Occam's razor.
Of course, yeah.
And it's like the simplest solution is probably the correct one, right? And so trust your gut. If you think you're doing a bad thing, you're probably fucking doing a bad thing.
Yeah.
And that's as simple as it is.
Yeah.
If you feel like you wouldn't want to tell a group of your peers what you just did,
Yeah.
you probably fucked up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's that simple, right? And I think that it's intention, right? And I think that it's that comes with the territory, right? And it's something that people have to work through, and people kind of have to go and have like a little bit of self-awareness of what they're trying to do and what their actual goal is, instead of like propelling themselves in it and then going, oh, did I like think this through? And you can reshape that as you go. Like maybe you thought one thing and you move, but it's intention, right? It's what you're trying to get to. And it seems like for you, like based on like your timeline, like it seems like the idea, like you always talk about like living a pain-free lifestyle, and like that's kind of been your like intention of giving people this opportunity of like not having like a misconception of fitness and stuff like that. So when you were getting into this like commercial space, what were some memorable moments that you kind of kept, like that you kind of knew, oh, like, yeah, I know, I like this, or like I know that like this is actually like a fulfilling thing?
I think it was the day that I sat in the classroom actually that I knew that I was in the right space. And not everybody's that fortunate to know that they are in the right avenue, that they're pursuing the right thing. But for me, like I already had a lot of clarity on it because I'd been working out on myself for so long beforehand. And I had a lot of friends that came to me just because I had my personal transformation from experience, right? So then people came to me. I probably wasn't super qualified at the time to give advice, but I already knew that it was the right path before I was into it, because I knew how it felt helping people and giving them some hope of what their life could be like and what they're trying to work towards beforehand.
And was like the balance, when you look at personal training, did you find like the balance between like financial success and personal success? Like was there, when you look at like, because you start by saying like what COVID, right? Like that kind of like put a damper on a lot of people's like on a lot of people's professional journey. Do you find that like there was a balance in like fulfillment, or was it more of like a personal professional fulfillment? It's like the money will come.
Yeah, I feel like if you're doing the right thing and if you have good intentions, the money will just naturally come.
Right.
I feel like if it's something that we're too fixated on, it won't often happen. I always use this analogy of like when people are impatient, it's almost like you're taking a plant out of a pot constantly, ripping it out, fucking screaming at it to grow faster, then putting it back in and trying to water it. It's like, well, no, you are ripping it out of the pot every day.
Yeah.
It's not going to grow any faster, right? Yeah. But it's just because we're so impatient, and I blame that on Amazon Prime. I blame that on skip the dishes. I blame that on having stuff at our fingertips because of this thing.
Yeah.
It's like we are in a society where we're like, there is no delaying gratification at all. So people are just like really impatient and they want stuff now because they are used to having stuff now. So it's kind of eye-opening for people, I find, when you tell them like, this is going to take time. Like,
is that a skill that you need to like instill in some of your clients? Like, is that one of the mainstays of like, hey, you really need to have this like balance in technology as well? Because like I even catch myself where you just start doom scrolling, then all of a sudden you're like, oh, 2 hours. Yeah. There we go. Boom. Gone.
Yeah. No, I always use this analogy. Like usually when I'm first meeting someone, I talk about like, so imagine you're standing kind of on like the ledge of a cliff, and in the distance you see this big mountain, right? And you have maybe a little blip of sunlight hitting the mountain itself, right? Like the mountain can really represent your North Star or your why. It's like where you want to go. But people often have their big issue is getting there. It's not so much what they want. In their mind, they kind of already know what they want, but it's the how to. And that's where people fail usually, is their expectations that they place, or they think like, I'm going to get from here to there automatically. But it's like, well, no, you have to like follow a quest marker in a sense and like know where you're going and break it down step by step to actually get there. And that's usually like where coaches come in, right? It's like, well, we're more realistic with them. We tell them what's actually possible, what's doable, and then support them through the process, right?
And was there a different type of skill set you had to learn when you were transitioning from more of a corporate, like when you look at Good Life or Movati, it's like there's certain guidelines that you probably have to like go within, and then you branch out to your own thing, and it's like, well, now what you're doing is kind of unlimited of like, well, you can be full of shit. It's like people will still pay. It doesn't matter, right? Yeah. Like there's no governing body. Do you think there was like obviously there was like a growing phase, but like talk to me about those type of growing pains from going into more of a structured program and then kind of building that structure on your own?
Man, I feel like all of the growing pains were just internal conflict. If you want to get into the imposter syndrome stuff, I feel like people battle with it because they lack confidence in their own skill set, right? I think that's really the root of imposter syndrome, is them feeling like they're not at a place where their skill or their knowledge is adequate enough for the task, right? So I feel like for me, there was always like this lingering self-doubt. And I've had to work on that a ton too, of like my own self-worth, my values, how I view myself. But I feel like once you work on that too, your skills improve naturally because you believe that you can actually do it.
Yeah.
So I feel like the hindrance oftentimes is like, we are our own kryptonite, we are our own gatekeeper.
And that's, and honestly, I definitely echo that. Like, you're your own worst enemy. Like, and it's the hardest thing to look at because like, I think it was Chris Williamson that said like it's ironic tragedy of complexity of mind. Like the more self-aware you are, the harder your life is. But if you just walked through this world, like I am honestly envious of people that can walk around and be like, everybody's my best friend. I say nothing wrong. Everything's perfect. There's nothing.
Style.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you're kind of like envious, but you say like there's a burden to having like that type of perception, right? Yeah. Yeah. Or looking at creating your own path or creating your own journey. It's like, well, there's a cost, right? And I think a lot of people don't understand of like you talk about being at a cliff and getting to the mountain. Like people don't understand walking through the thorns, right? Like people just don't get it, right? And it's like, I think that's more of a thing that people need to get it. And this is kind of where my next question is leading. Like, there's just as much of like an emphasis on fitness and nutrition, but where does that gap with the percentage of like mental readiness and like ability? Because like with my job that we talked about, a lot of times it's maturity. Like a lot of times doing the job, it has nothing to do with the function of the job. It has nothing to do with, because like it's shit no matter what. Yeah. No matter who you are, it sucks. And you're going to get tested no matter who you are. But the problem that people have, it goes, why does this guy get to work there? And why is this guy the supervisor? And why am I put here? And why is this guy doing this to me? And it becomes like, I call it main character syndrome, where people are saying like, everything that's happening in the world is stimulus directed at me instead of an experience just being experienced. So putting that into like a gym setting, how much is preparing people mentally of like not getting in their own way as important as the actual functions of working out and having good nutrition?
I'd say more important.
Yeah.
Like there is a plethora of information out there when it comes to working out, to nutrition. Like you could find all of that technically probably on ChatGPT, right? Mm-hmm. Like you could find all that information out there. But when most people start, the biggest issue is they're in their own way. And like I can just say that because I was for X amount of years, and even now too, there's little self-sabotaging tendencies that come in too when you're on a little bit of a climb, right? Or things are going well. And I do find that the people don't start seeing the success that they want, whatever the success means, right? until they're able to work on more of the behind the scenes stuff, i.e. like the mental component of it, and figuring out like if they're worthy enough to have what they want. Because that's really what it comes down to, right? Is most people don't think they're worthy to have the body they want, the experiences they want, a partner that they want, right? That's usually what it comes down to.
Is there like a level of governance in terms of knowing when you're pushing someone too hard or they don't have the capability of dealing with that criticism? Like, is there like a measurement process of going, how hard can I actually like this person looks like maybe they're a little bit more unstable. So like I'm going to have to deal with them with some gloves on, instead of where there's some people where you can like go in on them and it's not like, how does that process work, especially like handling your own brand and not wanting to like gain any negative traction in terms of being like, you know, a David Goggins, right? Like, where's the measurement of not going hard enough and not going too hard?
Yeah, so I feel like if you do a good enough job in your intake process, you should be able to establish what kind of person they are and what kind of coaching style they're receptive to, if you do a good job when you first meet someone. Because some people, like you said, they don't need as much of a push, like they just need the structure, right? Whereas some people, they might need some hand holding in the beginning, or some people you might have to be very gentle with your approach. But we always use the analogy too, where it's like you're kind of like a chameleon when you're in the fitness space or like training, because you're having to mirror somebody's energy and their personality, right? So when you are working with someone or talking with someone, you're having to slightly alter your approach slightly. But for me, like, I'm pretty honest and transparent from the beginning about how I coach. Like, I send out videos for people to watch beforehand too, so they can see like the framework of what my coaching entails and what I try to accomplish with them. But also, like, I'm very open with it on my social media, right? Like, I'm very open about my process, what I value, what I want to help people with too. So when they come to me, like, for the most part, they already know. And
like very key insights, like everything that you're posting has like an intent, like you're trying to explain something, or you're reacting to something, or you're explaining something in a detail that like is digestible.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there a consideration when you look at the difference between training a male and training a female? And like, how does that work? Do you ever find that there's like a disconnect, maybe training females, or there might be like misconceptions? And like, how do you balance that?
It's funny, I actually just had this conversation like last week with my business coach, and we were talking about how with men we find that we butt heads more because it's a bit more of a power struggle, but with women it's easier to coach them. They're more receptive generally, and I think a lot of it comes down to men being so logical and hyper focused on metrics, whereas women are generally probably more in touch with their emotions, and I feel like they're more receptive to feedback, whereas not every guy is like that. So I would say for probably the majority of my clientele is a lot of women.
That's good.
Yeah.
And like, even speaking on like the mental health thing, where it's funny, like I like some of the reels that come on my like Instagram and stuff are like streamers and whatever, and sometimes like there is this one instance where like a girl saw like nicely dressed women and was like, oh, you look so good, blah blah blah, and the male that was with her was like, it's funny that men don't do that too often. And why don't we? Like, if a guy's wearing a nice like pair of Jordans, why aren't we telling them like they're,
I do.
Oh, yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. And like how that actually benefits men's mental health to like get out of that mindset of like it's a big comparison game and it's a big like level up system. And like, do you find that's like a barrier to like some males of like, it's, I don't want to go in because I know I'm the bottom of the totem pole?
I'll sum up what I think the issue is in one sentence. Is I don't think most men know who they are.
Yeah.
And I think that's the issue, right? If you don't know who you are, of course you're not confident giving a man a compliment because you're worried about how everyone else is going to perceive you. Maybe they think that you're gay or that you're whatever, and like that's nothing wrong with being gay, right? But a lot of people are so worried about how they're perceived that I find oftentimes it's because they don't have clarity on who they are actually, like as a person, as a man. and like again they're misaligned with their values.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's like this idea where you talk about like being a chameleon, but on the opposite side, like for the totally wrong reasons, like you're like the term like code switching. Like it's like one of those things where it's like, well, if I was around a bunch of educated people in a library, I'm just going to do what they're doing. And if I'm with a bunch of dudes at the gym, I'm just going to do what they're doing. But like, I feel like a lot of people haven't found like their own lane. And like, is that a part of the training, or is that something you let them discover on their own? Like how much of that, like that personality or like learning that about themselves, like, is there like levels to what, like, how do you measure like where your realm is in like personal training and advocating and motivating? Like, where do you find like, is there maybe a gap where it's like, this really isn't what I'm paid to do. Right. And like my advice that I might be giving to them might actually screw up,
be harming them,
or I'm just doing too much.
Yeah.
I'm trying too hard to like play puppet master with this guy, and like I'm trying to mold this guy into what I want him to be instead of like giving him the structure and then letting him figure it out on his own.
Right. Yeah, no, I think you definitely have to know what's within your scope, right? I think as a coach and just as a professional in general, you have to realize this comes for anything. It could be injuries, but it could be also for the mental stuff too, right? You have to know like what's in your lane and what you can actually help them with. And I find as coaches mainly, right, we don't try to help people enough. I think we just look at like for maybe in-person clients, it's that one session we have with them and being there for them for that one session, but it's not, right? Like when you're working with somebody, you're helping them, in my eyes, you're helping them with their life. Like it's kind of more like life coaching, right? So for me, like I try to be there in ways that I can, but I have no issues being like, you know what, this is heavier stuff. You should go talk to somebody who is qualified and this is their sole job. Like go talk to a therapist or a counselor or whatever, especially if it's like a death or a divorce or some sort of breakup or something else too, where they might need that extra layer too. But I do think that like we can do a lot, just a lot of people aren't willing to have those tough conversations.
Do you think that takes a level of vulnerability?
Yeah. Like,
do you find that now that you've started your own like business, you've kind of had to break down the layers a bit in terms of being like, I have to be open to criticism. I have to be open to someone telling me like, you're pushing me too hard, or like, and how do you feel that? And how has that experience been for you in terms of like breaking the layers down and like kind of opening yourself up to that? Cause I know you talked about like, you dealing with like rejection and stuff and, and like, you know, and how does that play into like the role of a personal trainer?
Yeah. So I used to deal with rejection really bad, and I would often see criticism as being like another form of rejection. Like, oh, this person's giving me criticism because they're rejecting what I said or what I did, right? But as I've learned, just being in this space, but also being in like the media realm and podcast space too, like you need criticism to actually get better. Like if you're not getting criticism, like how are you supposed to know what you're doing wrong? And that's no different with coaching too, right? But that's why I think like every coach should have a coach. Like I have like many people that I mentor under, but it's because how would I expect my clients to be vulnerable, be receptive, be open-minded to coaching if I myself am not paying for
who
coaching?
Watches the watchers, right?
Yeah, and it's like if I'm not going through it, putting in the reps and trying to be better, then how can I expect them to do the same thing? It's like they can only follow suit if you actually like create the path yourself, right?
Right. So. And that's interesting because then when you look at it, it's like the people that you're training see you as the point of contact, but you're almost the middleman of like, well, I'm also like held accountable by like a level of like of my peers. And it's kind of like this behind the scenes thing, which is really interesting, where it's a hard thing to do, right? Like it's a hard thing to preach something and then be like, I'm actually putting this in practice in my real world. And like, you know, it's it's definitely like a tough job, because it's one thing where someone's life per se, or someone's fitness journey is basically like in your hands. You know what I mean? Like if they get injured or they get hurt, it's kind of under your watch. Or like if something didn't happen, if they don't reach their goals, well, there's like a level of accountability that may or may not be your fault, but it's like, did I lead this person down the wrong path? Did I, was I watching them closely enough? Was I checking in with them, right? And I
used to see clients not reaching their goals as like a failure on my end. But the more that I've been in this too, it's like they have to equally meet you where you're at. And like even for me too, like when I'm coaching someone, like I'm meeting them where they're at the entire time, right?
Right.
Like when somebody first starts, everybody's starting point is so different. Like somebody could have ample experience, so that means they're going to be at this level. Someone else might be brand new, that means they're down here, right? It's like, but they also have to reciprocate that and be willing to actually like match your efforts. So I lay that out in the very beginning. It's like I will be there to support you as much as I can be, but I can't force you to do this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there to like babysit you. I'm not living with you.
Yeah.
It's like I can't force you to like meal prep, to go to the gym on your own, to even come to the gym on the days that I'm seeing them. But like if it's in an online sense, it's like I can't force people to follow through on their end that they agreed upon. So in the very beginning, I try to like tell them that, and it's like if they try to point fingers, I'll be like, no, we established this in the very beginning, like that you would match the effort. You said you would.
No, yeah. And do you find that was like, do you find in the start of this, like your own personal training, do you find that was like something that you encountered more of, like the blame being placed on you instead of it being like a mutual or an accountability on their part? And is that like a more comfortable you got with articulating your, like, it's like you're like setting the expectations, or like, and was that a hard thing for you to do at the start of like managing expectations for yourself and for your clients?
It is still hard for me right now for managing expectations, right? Mm-hmm. I often go into new things expecting it to go this way or this way. And I've learned that you kind of just have to like roll with the punches a bit more. But at the same time, like as long as you're doing your due diligence, I think in the very beginning, and trying to actually like have that conversation about like what this person actually wants and what it takes to get there, there should never really be a problem. But I mean, if there is too, it's like end of the day, like I always see projection as somebody being frustrated internally, right? So if someone is coming to me and they're generally very upset about what happened or didn't happen, it's more than likely, not always, that they're actually more upset that they didn't follow through. Mm-hmm. But they want to blame you because it's way easier than taking ownership, right?
Yeah. It's not really the best term, but a lot of times wherever I face conflict, I go, if you don't like me, it's probably your fault. And because I know that like a lot of now there are some times where I go in and I might talk out of term, or but I'm very willing to be able to say like, yeah, you know what? That's my bad.
Yeah.
Right. But that took me a lot. Like I'm 30 and I was a shithead up until like 27 years old.
Yeah.
Right. Where it was like, there was, looking back at it now, and it's another Chris Williamson quote of like, the ironic tragedy is like life lived in forward, but you can only reflect in backwards.
Yeah.
Right.
Of course. Like,
so it's one of those things of like, it sucks that like people can't get to that level at a certain time, but it's like once you get there and you look back and you say like, okay, well, I'm glad I'm here, but it's also something I need to understand that like, there's a level of like learning and understanding, right? But it is like it's very easy to be like, well, this guy's the asshole. Well, this guy's they did this or they did that or they did that, and this is what the issue is. Or when I read this, it was not wrote out properly, and you're like, all right, well, if you're trying to justify it that much, now you're grasping, now you're reaching for what's not there, right?
And one thing I have been doing more, and just kind of to provide more context within this whole thing as well, is like if somebody is not where they want to be or not seeing progress too, I myself have spent a lot of time trying to put systems in place so then that way I can be more ahead of the curve, right? So if I'm noticing that somebody is adhering less or they're doing a little bit less on their end, it's like that's the matter of having a conversation, right? And just kind of figuring out what's going on, because I feel like a lot of people tend to want to battle with stuff alone. But it's just a matter of letting them know that like you're there if they want to chat, and also that the plan should be tweaked, right? If they're finding that it's really hard to adhere for whatever reason, it could just be too much at that current time, and like maybe slightly modify the plan versus having them just like completely fall off.
And is that like a fluid system, or is that something where you have a threshold of like, well, I'm only going to get burned so many times before like, and adding to that question is like, do you just like you have an onboarding process, do you also have like an offboarding process where you're like, I need to cut this person loose?
Yeah, I've had to fire some clients for sure. Usually I find it's, well, I mean, I don't usually find it's like a ethics and values issue because they would have already signed on. But usually I find it gets to a point where like they aren't really getting what they need from it anymore, and I find that I'm putting in more effort, or there's a huge disconnect of like what we both want the coaching to be. And usually I find that it's just their life has changed a lot and it's not a priority anymore. And I would much rather have that talk of like, hey, I can totally tell from just our interactions lately that this isn't as much of a focus as it once was. So let's just like put things on pause right now. We could have a conversation at a different time, talk about stuff. But for right now, I don't see this being like a good avenue to take.
Right. And through all this, because you're giving a lot of yourself to these people, how do you balance like your own personal life, your own personal desires and goals and achievements? And like, is that something that has something you had to work on, or do you find you've already maintained like a good balance? Because you also speak on work-life balance, where you say like, in order to get where you want to go, you're not really going to find a balance. Like for me, like it's delusion, like it's total delusion of like from day one. Like I read a lot of books about like manifestation and stuff, where it's like the moment you do something, you have to identify that, and like now you're that. Because if you're always trying to get to that point, you're never actually like living in it and growing. And like, how does that of you lending yourself to other people, how are you able to balance like your own personal goals? And like, is there an intersection where you found times that you've had to either sacrifice yourself or you had to sacrifice the benefit of your client?
So I'd say in the very beginning, it was hard, because I would say that for me, like, I'm naturally more of an empath and a giver. So especially being in this, you have to learn boundaries. And I don't mean boundaries in a bad way, but in a sense where you're able to keep a fine line of what's okay, what isn't, but also for yourself too, right? But yeah, I think it's a matter of, you have to realize that if, and this kind of like alludes to what you mentioned there about the work-life balance thing, right? Like Alex Ramosi, I think you said, was like, if you want to achieve big things, there is really no such thing as work-life balance until you're kind of already where you want to be. Right? And even then, like, that rung will always probably go higher up, right? So I think it's just a matter of realizing that, like, okay, if I have these big aspirations, these big goals, these big dreams, I have to be willing to sacrifice, maybe not sacrifice is a good term, but be willing to have less personal time or have less time of doing other things to make sure that I'm putting time, energy into what I want to grow. But I think for me, I've also had to learn too of like giving myself cutoff times, right? Like at night, every day, I'll cut off my stuff at like 7 p.m. Never used to before, but it's because there's been times where like I'd be replying to emails or doing stuff
like 2 in the morning or something.
Dude, yeah, absolutely. And it's just like, you know, because you're so worried about it tainting your image, right? But like end of the day, it's like, is this client going to cancel with you because you're not replying to an email at 11 p.m. at night, or they have some sort of issue with the workout or a payment issue that like you can't deal with the next day. And if it is that urgent, would they call you first?
Right.
Like they'd probably call their partner, their family first.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's, yeah, it's also like the measurement of like, are you doing too much, right? Like, are you doing too much? And is this like, you're going to dig a hole for yourself, right? Like, and wanting to be successful, do you think that's kind of like a predisposition? Like if you didn't do personal training and that wasn't like your motif, like I was just talking to my girlfriend about this. We went to the movies, we were driving home, and she said like, are you going to be upset if you don't get where you want to go with this podcast? Like, are you going to be resentful? And I go, no, I won't, but I will probably move on to something else, and it will get the exact same amount of attention that this has got. Like, if this crashes and burn, like my inherent gene of wanting to be successful is not going to change, right? Like, if it wasn't this, it would be this. And if it wasn't this, it would be that. Yeah. Like, do you think that is like an overlying thing in this passion? Or do you think it's necessarily the idea of fitness and like your drive for fitness? Or do you think it's the drive for success?
Maybe a combination of the two. I think there's, the deep inner child in me that wants the success for the eyes on me. That's a lot of stuff that I've had to work on over many years, is realizing like why I'm actually in this. But for me, it's just realizing that there is no plan B. Right.
And it's funny you say that, because I interviewed a tattoo artist named Oscar, and I kind of he moved here from Slovenia or somewhere in Europe. He came here, and I basically asked him like and like crazy motivation, crazy driven, he like his whole mentality. But I genuinely asked him, so if it wasn't this, what would you do? And he was like, oh, this was what I was made to do. Like, even if this was an apocalypse, like, I'd be tattooing the dead rat on the street. Like, he's like, this is all, he's like, even if I'm failing, this is what I was made to do.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not a definition of success. It's like, he just genuinely knows that, like, this is where he finds, like, the most calling. But it's very interesting, because it's like, that doesn't really taint his drive to be great.
Yeah.
But the drive to be great isn't the factor. Like, if he went to something else, he's like, well, I'm not gonna, like, I don't care. Right?
Yeah.
So it's very, very interesting on how, like, there is like a weird ironic balance of like, sometimes people go into those pockets and they excel.
Yeah.
And then you put them somewhere else and it's like, meh, and they turn into shitheads.
I think you got to ask yourself, right? Like, in your life currently, this could be for you or even listeners too. It's like, what things really give you life?
Right.
And what things make you feel full? And what things allow you to go into a flow state? And when you leave doing it, you're like, man, I feel on top of the world. It's like, if that is what you're pursuing, then you keep fucking pursuing it, right? And that's something I'd ask myself too, because man, there's been as many ups as there's been twice as many downs, right? But people don't look at that. They look at I'm sure same thing for you. They look at the studio, the podcast, they look at what you've accomplished, but they don't see all of the nights that you went to bed at 2 a.m. or the nights that you had everything that you recorded or that you filmed with no audio. Or they don't see the huge issue you had with XYZ, and they don't see all the stuff that you did to be where you are now. I think people have to realize that, like, it's a climb. And you have to ask yourself too, like, even with you and I, are we going for impact or influence? You have to ask yourself that.
Right.
Do you want to change lives or do you want to have influence?
Right.
Because they're different.
Right.
But one fucking matters.
Yeah.
The other one feels cool.
Yeah.
But which one do you want?
And it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to balance that idea of it, especially being like so like public facing, of being able to like maintain that and have that like integrity. And it really is one of those things where, you know, you have to know that it's not always going to be nice, right? Like, and
Let me ask you a question. If
Yeah.
you were offered $10 million tomorrow, no strings attached, would you take it?
Yeah.
What would you do with it?
I have no idea. I'd probably give a lot of money away.
Okay.
A lot of people that I knew that helped me succeed, I'd probably do a lot of that. I'd probably prop up a lot of people. I'd invest in their businesses. I would, people that have good ideas. I would obviously take care of myself and take care of my family. But I know that when I started this, and I even like the people that I hang around, like it's genuine want to see people succeed, even if it's under a hindrance to what I'm doing, but not to like a negative aspect. It's like, okay, I could have this person on, and they could be way more influential, but I booked my friend, and I could cancel my friend to get these guys.
Yeah.
But I was even telling you about one where like we just couldn't get the plot, and it was like I still have to, but it's out of respect, right? It's out of respect for that person of like it's not going to look good. And I hate to tell people that, but it's like, or some people go, I would love to come on the podcast, and you just say, well, what would you talk about? And they're like, excuse me? Well, no, what would you talk about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I genuinely don't know what you would be able to talk about for 60 minutes.
Yeah.
So, like, you need to tell me that, because, like, I'm not going to waste my time, right?
No, yeah, for sure.
But, sorry.
That was interesting, yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, when you decided to leave, did you face a lot of, like criticism or, like, mockery? And, like, how like, that was one of my biggest hindrances when I started this podcast, was like dealing with mockery. And like, and now those same people
want to be on,
and they're like, I think you're doing something amazing. Yeah. And a year before, they're like, what are you going to do? Have me on your podcast? And you're like, all right, yeah, cool. And now they're like, dude, I watched this episode. I love what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, okay, noted.
No, I think this nicely segues into what we want to talk about for the Spartan Race anyways. And it's like, for me, like, I lived a lot of my life in fear of what people would say. But I've realized that people will say shit regardless. Yeah. Whether you're doing it or not doing it. They'll say shit for you doing it and criticize how you're doing it, but they'll also say shit if you don't and call you a coward. Mm-hmm. So it's either like, do you just lean into it and do it, or do you not? And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, when you look at yourself and you go to bed at night, like, can you live with your decision? Right. And if you can, then perfect, you're set, right? So it's like, I think, and like from us talking today too, and how you answered the $10 million question, I know you're in the right place. Thank you. Because if people, if they said, oh, I'm going to buy this yacht, this, it's like, I know that they're not after the right things. But the immediate thing that you said was help your friends, mm-hmm. which means that I think this will be a success. Because you have a good core. Yeah. If you didn't, then that's different. But I think for you, you're in it for the right reasons. And that's even to what you said earlier, too. Like, what if it doesn't work out? I think it already has, man. Yeah. Think about all the conversations you've had, right? Yeah. And again, like, I help with, like, training at work. And, like, a lot of times I tell people, like, rate yourself low, because you give yourself a way bigger window to succeed. You want to give yourself a 5 now? This is the best you got? Yeah. What the fuck, dude? Yeah. You're saying you're the best now? Well, I'm telling you, this isn't good enough. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Why wouldn't you put yourself at a 1 and go, well, look at the capability. I've just created so much of a gap from where I'm at, which is already okay. Yeah. It's like, okay, if I can measure this now and you times this by 5... But if you tell me you're a 4 out of 5 now, well, what, you're only going to get 20% better? Yeah. So that's not good enough, right? No, so it's the idea of, like, you have to remain, and sometimes, I'm sure you can say as well, like, with a business, sometimes, like, your motivations, or not even your motivations, sometimes you could be putting in the most amount of work and your intention is that you want to do all the right things. It's just not in the right direction. I could sit here and buy $20,000 worth of equipment, but if I don't know how to use it, it's worthless. Yeah, I heard a good thing recently too, where it's like you could have the best recording tech cameras, mics. You could even hire someone, but if the content sucks, the content sucks.
Yeah.
You could have a old camera, right? Or you could just shoot on your phone. Nothing crazy, right? But you see it happen all the time. Like videos that are just good videos, they go viral because they're good videos. People that hire the fancy camera crew, they spend tens of thousands of dollars on equipment, but they don't have good guests or they don't have a good presence. It's like, that's why it's not doing well. It's not because of like the equipment. That's why whenever you talk to people, I'm sure same thing for you too, right? Like, oh, I want to wait till I have all the equipment, and I'm just like, just start.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's like, wait for what? Wait for what? The leprechaun to come over the rainbow and give you everything you've asked for?
Yeah.
Like, it's just the whole idea. Like, there is a level of patience where, like, dude, like, I probably reach out to 5 people a day to come on as guests, and 90% of the time it's like, yeah, no, I think I'm all right. And you're like, all right, cool. Like, it's okay. Like,
Yeah.
I know this isn't for everybody. And like, maybe it's going to take a guest that I have on to be like, oh, this matches with something. I just didn't know I could talk about this.
Yeah.
Or I didn't know this was a topic that you'd be willing to explore.
Yeah.
Oh, well, now I'm okay coming on. Perfect. Like, there's a level of patience with that. But then there's a level of like natural progression you need to have of like, I need to have these bumps in the roads. I need to have these like minor and major fuck ups where like you totally bomb an interview or like the guest bombs the interview.
Yeah.
And then you tell them like, hey, I'm not going to put out this episode, but you're more than welcome to come back for
Yeah.
another interview. And here's why.
Well, if you
You
think
know?
about it, right, it's like, even from a podcast standpoint, with there's 52 weeks in a year, right? So if you wait a year, you're missing out on 52 episodes to hone in on your craft.
Yeah.
Do you really want to wait a year? Or do you want to fine tune your craft and get the practice over that year? It's the same thing with fitness stuff, right? Do you want to wait a year, or do you want to maybe have a completely different life in a year from now? Because it's like, you don't know what could happen in a year if you just lean in.
And that's a big thing too. And even with people that I know that like talk about other, like one guy, he was like, I want to make like knives, or I want to do like bladesmithing, but I don't know about this, I don't know about that, I don't know about that. And you say, it's all based on how creative you want to get.
1000%.
You know,
Yeah.
If you want to do it, you will find a way. The
Yeah.
reason you're not doing it is because you really don't want to.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that you're doing else. You're going and dirt biking. You're going and do. Well, how did you get there?
Yeah.
There had to be some level of drive to get there. So you really don't want it that bad if you're not going, okay, well, this doesn't work, but I'm going to try that. Okay, that doesn't work. I'm going to go, okay, maybe I can do this and this. Well, maybe I can do that and then move it to here. And it's like, but some people, they get to the barrier and then they just go, I can't do it. It's like, no, you're not willing to do it.
Yeah.
And there's a huge, huge difference
Yeah.
of not being able to and not having like the want or like the will to do it, right?
I think the huge disconnect is the why.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, if they are having trouble following through on something, is that they don't have true clarity as to what they want.
And do you think this is kind of why you started your podcast? I kind of want to break into that. Like, when you started this, was this like did you find there was like a gap in this type of realm?
You mean the first podcast?
Yeah, or even pursuing a horizons and like
sure, yeah.
kind of like, again, you've kind of went through trial and error of like different things and what works and what doesn't. Like, what kind of landed you on this one, and kind of speak to your co-host or your colleague, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of speak to him and how kind of that influenced the creation of what you're doing.
Yeah, so I guess I'll give a little bit of backstory as to why I got into podcasting even. So honestly, it was very random. Like, I had a buddy that I was doing it with, and he was like, hey, you want a podcast? I was like, I guess, why not?
Yeah.
It was over COVID. We had ample time. We did the whole like Audacity thing where we'd record all of our audio, and then we would actually like manually put it all together, right? Before we used AI. And yeah, for a while it was just like neither one of us really doing what we were doing, but we knew that we both liked talking. And for me, like, I always found that I learned really well from podcasts. Like, I consumed a lot of them over COVID, but even now too, like, I'll listen to a lot of them still, right? And I find it's just one of the best ways to get perspective, get insight, and learn on a topic, right? Or even like learn more about someone. Even if you're not specifically like trying to learn something, it allows you to see someone on like a deeper level. So yeah, I did like a bunch of episodes on that one, and then I wanted to just do something different. So I was pursuing a different avenue for a little while, and there was no issues there with him and I. Like, we just wanted different things. He was pursuing more the media side of things, his own coaching business, and I don't think we wanted the same things, right? So that was a very like amicable thing that we both kind of agreed upon. And then I was just going to go back to doing my own thing on that one. And then through conversations that Rob and I had at work, I realized that him and I were very alike in a lot of ways, very like open-minded, forward-thinking, both guys that are very like in touch with their feelings and more emotional people. And I realized that like he could be the co-host that I've kind of been like not directly looking for, but like kind of looking for, right?
Yeah, kind of landed in your lap.
Yeah, and then we landed on pursuing horizons, and that's what we're doing now.
Yeah. And how has been your experience? Have there been any like standout episodes for you, whether that be with a guest or just with your co-host? Has there been any like topics or discussions that you felt like this kind of like excelled your experience or your like say skill level or whatever that be, that really like kind of gave you like full life cycle of like, oh yeah, this is what?
Yeah, so I would say, to be fair, all of them kind of give me that.
Of course.
Like, I think every time I do a podcast, I have that feeling that I'm kind of on cloud nine after.
Yeah.
But there's definitely been some that have really stood out. There was one where Dr. Casey Jo Oviris, she's from the Texas area, and she's like a psychologist. So we had a big talk about fixed mindset versus growth mindset.
Right.
And that one was pretty eye-opening for me because the way that she talked about it, right? Like, I always thought that like you're either more fixed or you're more like growth mindset oriented, but she talked about how like you can be growth mindset or fixed mindset in different avenues in your life, and how having a fixed mindset in some ways is actually good. Like, if it comes to your values, right? It's really
like
good
finances.
To be fixed. Yeah. Whereas like when it comes to criticism or to relationships, you want to have a growth mindset, right? Imagine if you just had like just a fix for everything. Like, it's this way and it's only this way. But like, it's also important to not always have a growth mindset, because you don't want to like lose parts of you that identify you through the relationship.
Right.
So that was pretty eye-opening for me, because I always just thought it's like this or that. But learning that there's like nuance to it was an interesting one. But honestly, man, we've had some really cool people on, and like I wouldn't have probably had those conversations if it weren't for the podcast, and for that I'm always grateful. So
yeah, and like we kind of talked about it off air, where like there's a level of personal growth that comes with, you know, doing podcasting, because you sometimes I don't know for your experience, but sometimes I'll reach out to people, genuinely be like, I think I need to know. I'll give you an example. I didn't end up landing the guest, but I thought it was something. So I had a friend of mine that I worked with security with in Nova Scotia when I was like 18 years old.
Yeah.
They were a male at the time. They ended up transitioning to a female.
Yeah.
Out of respect for them, I reached out and said, you know what? I don't know enough about this topic, and I feel like I have an inherent bias. I'd love to have you on my show to like talk about how that, if you're comfortable, because I think A, it's something that I need to learn about, and B, I think it provides a lot of context, and like it's out of genuine like wanting to know. And like in my head I was like, this is gonna be like a flagship episode, not for my audience, not for anybody else, but for the ability to allow someone to kind of teach me.
Yeah. And I was actually going to mention that earlier, that like I think everybody that we've had on, I've genuinely wanted to learn from them. And I think if you're doing that, then you're going to be in good alignment with your podcast, because you're having the right conversations with the right people, because you genuinely find them interesting and you want to talk to them.
And when you look at podcasting and like the amount of, whether or not you have more experience compared to your co-host, was there any sort of like power dynamics, or was it kind of like you guys share like a 50-50, like, you know, it's not like for me and like how I'm doing it, my co-hosts have like functions of what they're doing, but in terms of like say final say or everything I run by them, but a lot of the functions or a lot of like understanding of things they leave to me. But I find that also creates like a weird power dynamic where then the burden on me and the responsibility to own the fuck ups are on me instead of the team, right? And it's nothing on them, and it's a lot of like things that I've took on my own. But do you find like having to share that like passion or share that idea, do you find that like that had to be a discussion that you needed to have of like, what are we trying to do here? What are you willing to take on comfortably? You know, am I putting too much on your plate? Am I asking you to do things you're not capable of doing?
Yeah. I feel like it's establishing expectations at the beginning. Like we've had a lot of talks about that today with coaching, but also this. But I think that you're naturally going to change as time goes on. So I think it's just keeping the communication open as their life is changing, as your life is changing. You're probably going to have to pick up more of the slack at some points. But I do think that like generally one person will probably just assume more of the responsibility. I think it's kind of natural.
Yeah, of course. I want to talk about the Spartan Race. I think the idea and the concept of what you're trying to do, to gain awareness for mental health and like kind of putting yourself in not an uncomfortable position, but also challenging yourself for the goodness of gaining awareness. Yeah. And I think that's a very noble thing because a lot of people aren't willing to do that. A lot of people are doing it to gain the credibility of doing it and finishing it. So I want to say good for you, for having that type of, you know, to do that and stick with it and have that type of integrity. It's amazing. We will be sharing the GoFundMe in the description as well as all your social medias so our audience can show you some support. Right now you're raising, I think your goal is $1,200. Yeah. $1,200 for men's mental health. So where did this idea come from?
So one of my buddies was wanting to do the Spartan Race. It was very spontaneous. He was like, hey, they have this blowout sale on the 5Ks. And he was like, do you want to do one? And for people watching and listening, like I used to do powerlifting, but I haven't really had a sport or anything as of recently that I've been wanting to train for. I've been very focused on business, the podcast, right? And like training's always been a constant for me, but like I used to have something that I was like training for. So I was like, hey, maybe this can give me something to like train for again, and who knows, maybe it'll turn into something cool. So yeah, after that I had come up with the idea of like trying to hit the follower count goal with the top and bottom women's Lululemon thing. And then I was like, well, let's add a layer to it. Let's do it for a good cause, right? And it was that was actually through chatting with a good friend of mine about it too. So both him and I kind of came to the terms that like it'd be good to do something for a good cause, right? So, but the biggest thing for me is like I had a lot of fear and self-doubt in my life for years. And I would often let that fear dictate what I did or didn't do. And that could be even as small as posting on social media or putting out a podcast episode, just because there'd be like some subliminal fear of what somebody would think of it and if somebody would be judging me. So for me to be doing this, it's actually to prove to myself that I can. And it's to prove to myself that I can lean into discomfort and tune out the noise and do something that a younger version of me would never have done.
And it's a good representation to your clients that like you're living in the same mantras that you're also trying to kind of teach, if that makes sense. Like it's also like a good way to like baseline yourself and go, I'm not just preaching, I'm actually doing as well. How has been the training regimen? What would you say the like difference in training for a run/obstacle course as opposed to powerlifting or simply a run? And was having the obstacles something that like intrigued you? How did that kind of especially being doing powerlifting before, how did that kind of, were there any apprehensions of running a 10K? Have you been running a lot before?
Yeah, so when I used to powerlift, I came to a brutal realization that it was for everyone else, not for me. I realized that the numbers that I had on the scoreboard was a direct representation of how I felt about myself and how I wanted people to feel about me. So I got to a point where I realized that I wasn't doing it for the right reasons. That's a big reason why I stopped, but also because I was going through XYZ with injuries too, right? Like you get to a point where you're training at that frequency, that intensity constantly, and your body doesn't agree with it all the time. So as I've kind of shifted my own focus more towards just like performance and health and just like, again, not having pain constantly, that was kind of the draw to doing this, because it is just solely performance based. It's not like this is based off of some judge gauging if you pass or fail the lift, right? This is like you either cross the finish line or you don't. And the challenge is like, it's yourself. As per the training, like I've been doing a lot of the similar things, because I think there's a lot of overall strength components to it that I want to keep, but it's been a lot of cardio, like more in a steady state. I have actually run a 10K before, but it was a long time ago. My shins and stuff are fucked for like 3 or 4 days, but I've just been trying to work on improving my like cardiovascular health, because obviously it is a longer duration run, but I feel I want it to be a surprise. Like I haven't watched any videos on the race itself. I don't want there to be like expectations going into it. I want the whole experience to be very novel. And call that crazy, but I just want it to be like something that's completely entirely new. It's kind of almost like the equivalent of not watching a movie trailer before you really see a movie.
I did something similar called Mud Hero, and dude, it's an amazing experience. Everybody's there, they're positive, everybody's there to like, they're going for the goal of completing it, but it becomes like its own little community and its own little like, everybody's the best coach and motivator ever. Like, and it's interesting. Like, if only you could surround yourself with like these people all the time. It's like you could only imagine where you would get, like we talk about like dudes not giving people compliments. Like imagine if you went in the gym and like everybody was just trying to help everybody out, and like how far everybody would get.
That's why, like, again, I'll talk about it again, just why I think it's so important to have like a mentor, because that way you're very frequently communicating with somebody that you look up to, and in a sense you aspire to be where they are. So it's like, what better person to talk to often than someone that you actually want to emulate in a sense too, and someone that has a life that you want. Because if you are frequently communicating with them and you're spending a lot of your time with them, it's kind of inevitable in my mind that you will work up towards that.
Before we wrap up, is there any advice or something you would like to leave the audience off with before we go? Obviously, you have the race August 9th. Everybody check out the links in the description. Go show Bryce some support. Donate to a great cause, and wish him the best luck in the Spartan Race on August 9th. But I would like to know what you would like to send us off with and what advice you would like to give the people.
I'd say if I can give even a younger version of myself to a piece of advice, is just be yourself. And show up genuine and show up authentically in whatever it is that you're doing, right? It could be fitness, it could be podcasting, it could be whatever. It could be content too, right? Just be you. And if you want to pursue that, pursue it relentlessly. Don't worry about what people are saying, because truthfully, from my experience, people will talk shit anyways. So I'd rather them talking shit about what you're doing than you not doing it and wishing that you would have done it. So take a bet on yourself and take the leap.
Thank you very much for coming on, man. I had an amazing conversation with you, and I can't wait to have you come on the podcast again in the near future, talk about your experience with the Spartan Race and everything like that. We're going to be championing you the whole way, and I'm super happy.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Honestly, this was great to chat with you. And again, this was really cool to be here. So thanks for the opportunity. And I appreciate all the support, man.
Yeah, of course. With that, that has been Solo Spotlight with Ryan MacDougall, episode 44, Bryce MacArthur. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment below. What did you like about the conversation? Where do you think you fit in your personal journey and your motivations? And yeah, catch us for the next episode. See you later.